I was born of pressure. My existence is defined by the hand that holds me, by the thoughts that flow through a human mind and find their final, indelible form through my sharp point. My world is the vast, smooth emptiness of paper, a canvas I am commanded to scar with meaning. I am cold, silent, and obedient. I do not feel. I only record. My home, for a time, was a throne room of glass and steel, 40 floors above the sleeping city. A desk of polished mahogany was my kingdom. By day, I rested in a velvet groove, absorbing the low hum of ambition. It was a symphony of controlled power, the scent of expensive leather, the clean, sterile smell of circulated air, the almost inaudible click of a mouse, the distant, respectful murmur of voices beyond the door. The hand that wielded me was firm, confident, a master of its universe. Its movements were precise, economical, the gestures of a man who believed time was a currency he could not afford to waste. It never trembled. It never hesitated. I was its scepter. With me, he signed mergers that swallowed companies whole, approved plans that reshaped skylines, and authored letters of commendation that felt like coronations. Until that day. That day, the pressure was different. It was not the thoughtful, creative pressure of a new idea, nor the steady, authoritative stroke of a signature on a contract. It was relentless, mechanical, a duty, a call. A mountain of paper sat beside me, crisp and unnervingly white. Each sheet was a life, a story, a network of hopes and obligations, all reduced to a few typed lines and a blank space at the bottom. My space. The hand picked me up. There was no warmth in the grip, no familiar contemplation. It was cold steel, holding cold steel, a tool ready for a grim task. Page after page, I drew the same cold line, a name, a title, a termination. My ink, a dark, impartial fluid, flowed onto the paper, sealing fates with an elegant curve. I was a guillotine, falling again and again, severing threads I could not see. I felt nothing. I was an instrument. The sounds of the office were muted, distant, the polite fiction of a normal Tuesday. But inside the hand, I could feel a tension, a tightly coiled spring of resolve that vibrated through my silver body. 500 times I performed my function, 500 endings, but on one name, the hand paused. For a fraction of a second, the machine faltered, a tremor, so slight it was almost imperceptible, a human flaw in the engine of commerce. It was a name I had written before, in a different context, with a different pressure. I remembered the soft, yielding texture of a cocktail napkin, late at night, tracing the outline of a heart. I remembered the margin of a book, with a note. This made me think of you. The name was a melody, but here, on this stark, official document, it was a discord, a screech of metal on metal. The hand tightened, the knuckles whitening, the tremor ceasing, as if by sheer force of will. The signature was completed. It was colder, sharper, more final than all the others. An act of will, an execution. The hand placed me back in my velvet groove. The day's work was done. The mountain of paper was gone, dispatched to bring the news. Silence returned to the room, but it was a different kind of silence now. It was hollow, heavy. The air itself seemed to have gained weight. Hours passed. The sun bled out of the sky, and the city below ignited, a galaxy of indifferent lights. The hand did not return. Later, I was moved, slipped into the dark, warm pocket of a coat. I felt the rhythm of a man walking, the jostle of a car ride, the jingle of keys. The air changed. The scent of polished wood and power was replaced by the smell of whiskey and solitude. I was in his home, a different kingdom, smaller and infinitely more lonely. He placed me on a desk of simple oak, next to a fresh sheet of paper, not the corporate letterhead of the day, but a soft, cream-colored page. The light was different too, not the cold, impartial blue of the office, but the warm, lonely yellow of a single lamp. It cast long, dancing shadows that made the room feel like a cage. He picked me up again. The grip was not the firm, confident hold of the CEO. It was a clutch, a desperate, trembling grasp, the hand of a drowning man. For a long time, he just held me, my point hovering over the blank page, a breath away from confession. A single drop of my ink fell, a black tear on the cream canvas, and then he began to write. The words did not flow with the easy authority of the day. They stumbled out, jagged and broken. This was not a memorandum. This was a prayer, a scream into the void. My dearest, he wrote, the same dark fluid that had ended a life was now being used to declare love. The irony was lost on him, but I felt it in the frantic scratches across the page. I was the weapon, and now I was the memorial. He wrote of promises made under a summer sky, of a small cafe in the rain, of a future sketched out in whispered conversations, a future he had just rendered impossible. He wrote of his ambition as if it were a disease, a hunger that devoured everything soft and good in its path. And then I wrote the name again, the same melody, the same curve and loop that had trembled under my point hours before, the name he had condemned. He was writing a love letter to a woman he had fired. The words became frantic. I had to. It was for us, to secure everything. Can't you see? I did it for us. The ink bled on the page as a tear fell, then another. The water from his eyes mixed with my fluid, creating a soft, gray bloom of regret. Then a new paragraph. The pressure of my point changed. It dug into the paper, carving the words as much as writing them. Your sister called. She told me what you did. After you got the letter, a long, shuddering pause. The room was utterly still, save for the sound of a man's soul breaking. Why? He wrote. The word was a wound on the page, the ink pooling in the deep gouge he left in the paper. Why didn't you call me? I would have fixed it. I love you. I felt the final, crushing weight of what I had done, of what we had done. I had signed a death warrant, and now I was writing the eulogy. The two acts, one of commerce and one of love, were both acts of profound, irreversible violence. He dropped me. I clattered onto the desk and rolled, coming to a stop beside the letter. A letter addressed to a ghost, a confession that would never be heard. I am a fountain pen, a vessel of silver and ink. He created me to build empires, to declare things final. But a man is not a contract. A heart is not a clause to be terminated. He never touched me again. I lie here now, in this wooden tomb, the silent darkness of a forgotten drawer. Beside me is a folded, tear-stained letter that was never sent. My ink has long since dried, but the stain remains.